classmates from Bachelor in Public Administration Block 2A, and to our respective professors, Miss Frances Noel and P. Manila. A pleasant night to all of you. So, tonight, we will present and have a session in the subject of good governance and social responsibility. Together with my team, which is Group 5, I want to welcome all of you for this session. But before we start, let me introduce to you my team, which exert their effort and time to make this session possible. So, first, we have Miss Maureen Soterio, Miss Regine Visitacion, Miss Lauren Valle, Mr. Bon Ryan Samonte, Miss Joyce Sumarnap, Mr. Mark Lester Velacruz, Mr. Patrick Sacris, and Miss, Mr. Tony Sale, and I'm Kyra Villaferte. So, our topic for tonight is all about roles of the external auditor. So, I will not make this any longer, and let's now proceed with the discussion. Next po. So, again, our topic for today is the roles of external auditor. So, later on is malalaman natin yung iba't ibang roles ng isang auditor and yung mga subtopics uh, under this topic. So, next po, Maureen.
Good evening. So, let us know what is external audit. External audit is the audit of the company's financial records in which the external auditors perform out the task of examining the validity of the company's financial records to evaluate whether there is any mistake in the records due to fraud, error, or embezzlement, and then reporting the same to the company's stakeholders. So before tayo mag-proceed, for us to thoroughly understand, let us know first kung ano ang ibig sabihin ng audit po. Ano? So, ang audit is the performance to ascertain or to ensure na ang to ensure that um to ensure yung reliability or validity, kumbaga yung clarity, yung katotohanan ng mga impormasyon. Including it includes examining books of accounts at kasama dito ang vouchers and documents. So stay put kasi sa mga upcoming slides mas mapapalalim natin ito. Next na.
So, let's discuss the needs for external auditor. Joyce?
Hello po. So first, the subtopic of the rules of external auditor is the need of external auditor. So there is a need for independent auditor because of the apparent separation of ownership and management. Audit services are used extensively by business organizations to cast away doubts on the information given by the management, which also generated under its control. There exists information risk. Business structure are becoming more complex, which increases the possibility that unreliable information might be fed not only to decision makers, but more importantly to the shareholders. So, sinasabi dito na kinakailangan talaga ng ang external auditor in terms of business para mabigyan ng linaw at paliwanag tungkol sa paghati-hati ng ownership ng isang kumpanya. Alam naman natin siguro na ang isang external auditor ay independent, which means nag-iisa lang siya o hindi siya company employee. At ang pwedeng magpa-consult sa kanya ay ang iba't ibang shareholders ng isang kumpanya na naguguluhan tungkol din sa separation of their shares. Ang isang external auditor ay nakatutulong para mabigyan linaw yung mga unreliable information and fraud o yung mga pandaraya na pwedeng maganap sa loob ng isang kumpanya. That's why when it comes to reviewing a company's financial status, every organization needs a good external auditor. Isa pa, dahil ang isang external auditor ay required to have a license of CPA or Certified Public Accountants sa mga public accounting firms, dahil doon, they can look through in-depth accounting information in order to ensure that the reporting is a true representation of an organization financial position. So that's all. Next slide po. So the next is for the reason why your company need an external auditor. Having a high quality auditor working on your behalf can help stave off potentially catastrophic problem, fraud, abuse, or non-compliance with government regulation can be all hidden beneath the surface of your day-to-day accounting practices. And become more pronounced the more your company grows. There are few reasons why you might want to partner with an external auditor sooner than later. So dito yung sa apat na rason na ito, malalaman natin yung mga factors of having a good external auditor at upang mapigilan yung mga problema na maaaring mangyari. So next po. So in government compliance, an external auditor can help identify areas where your books or accounting practices are no longer in compliance with new internal revenue service regulations. An external audit can also pinpoint where your compliance efforts may be lacking. Since an external auditor has no reason to be anything but honest about the status of your financial compliance, you can rely on the independence of the investigation and on the recommendation being made. So dito sa government compliance, ang external auditor ay parang magiging guide in terms of government regulation. Because of the external auditor, there is no longer compliance will be imposed in your company. At ang external auditor ay ma-identify niya agad kung aling rules ba yung and regulation ba yung ng gobyerno ang kailangan sundin ng nasabing kumpanya. So it will become an asset for your company to have a measurement to that regulation in a business. Example na lang dito yung sa status of your financial position compliance. So in the tax by our government, external auditor will identify and check these accounting practices in order to maintain the right compliances to do in your company. So that's all. And next is the credibility, which will explain by the next reporter. Mr. Malna.
Credibility. Credibility internally and externally, your financial statement will carry more weight if they've been reviewed by an external auditor. For family businesses, closely held corporations, and nonprofits, these audits provide common ground for stakeholders to properly assess the financial health of the organization. For publicly traded companies, external audits offer an unbiased glimpse into the accounting practices of the organization. Sa credibility po o kredibilidad sa Tagalog, ito sa panloob at sa panlabas. Tataas o magdadagdag ang pera na papasok kapag ito ay nasuri ng isang external auditor. Para naman po sa family business sa mga corporation at non-profit, sa pag-audit po, dito po ito yung nagbibigay ng mga karaniwang batayan para sa mga stakeholder upang maayos na masuri ang financial health ng mga organisasyon. Para naman daw po sa mga public traded companies, ang mga external auditor, wala po silang pinanindigan o unbiased nga po sila sa mga kasaysayan sa accounting ng isang organisasyon. Next po is sa fraud prevention. While it may be unpleasant to even think that someone could be defrauding your company, it's better to know for sure than continually wonder. It's impossible to spot a frauders just by looking, and then often turn out to be the person least likely to arouse suspicion. External auditor examines bookkeeping records without a filter of personal relationship clouding their judgment. For them, the financial statement will tell the unvarnished truth, and their impartial inspection could keep your business from taking a major loss. Sa fraud prevention naman po, dito po yung mga external auditor, sinusuri ng mga external auditor ang mga talaan ng bookkeeping. Sila po yung nag-i-inspection para po mapigilan yung pwedeng malaking pagkalugi dahil ng isang kumpanya. Dahil po sa mga manloloko o trader sa isang kumpanya. Sila po yung mga nag-inspect. Sunod po. Ipipresent po ni Miss Pali.
Okay. Next is the process improvement. Ito yung the fourth reason why we need external auditor, and hopefully your external audit will turn up nothing unusual. Even in this instance, however, an outside out accountant might find areas where you could improve your internal controls or automate certain processes to be more streamlined. While these recommendations don't have to be implemented immediately, knowing where waste and inefficiency are originating will allow you to put a plan in place to address the problems over time. So ito na nga po yung last reasons why we need external auditor. Ito yung from the word itself, process improvement, yun yung mag improve dun sa processes sa loob ng sa loob ng organizations. We need external audit kasi nga for example, not an example, for any instances in internal audit, parang there's nothing unusual, parang lagi lang siyang um, walang nagbabago. Pero if we apply external audit, makikita nila yung mga gaps and mga lapses ng organizations na nagko-cause siya ng insufficiencies or inappropriate processes. Kaya external audit will help the internal audits to have an improvement in the systems. Yun na nga, yung parang through external audit, makikita nila yung mga possible developed activities or ano bang tawag dun? Developed activities or processes na pwedeng mag-improve dun sa organization or dun sa audit. Then, however, hindi naman itong parang nai-implement ng agad-agad kasi it takes time para makita kung ano yung lapses or gaps dun sa processes, and it also needs to examine and undergo a lot of processes for it to be implemented. Yun yung process improvement. Ang pinaka reasons nito ay para magkaroon ng development dun sa internal audit and dun sa organizations din. Next po. Risk.
So next is risk of information. Next slide po. Okay, so information risk. This risk reflects the possibility that the information upon which the business risk decision was made was inaccurate. A likely cost of the information risk is the possibility of inaccurate financial statements. So, ang information risk, ang main point nito is these are the threats or these are the possibilities na yung information mo can be damaged, can be lost, and can be in danger. Yung mga data and documents. And one of the example na sinabi dyan is yung risk in the possibility of inaccurate financial statements, whether in financial loss or yung mga viruses, mga human failure, and hardware and software errors. So all of that will fall under information risk. Next is the risk levels and categories. Risk levels and categories provide a framework that can be used to organize and communicate information risk in an easily recognizable format. Risk levels provide a scale to represent the level of material business impact that would result if a risk were to be realized. The categories help to define the type of impact that would likely materialize. To be useful, the levels and categories should be simple and easily understood. So we have different risk levels and risk categories that would help us para mas maintindihan at mas madali nating ma-recognize yung mga datas and documents or any information that is in damage or nagkaroon ng problema. Next slide po. So these are the examples of information risk levels. High, severe, material compliance, legal and or financial consequences, significant material impact on critical business processes and or business operations, loss of customer trust and or damage to brand reputation. Second is the medium level, significant material compliance, legal or financial consequences, substantial material impact on key business processes and or business operation, weakened, weakened customer trust and or brand reputation. Last is the low level, negligible to no material compliance, legal or financial consequences, minimal material impact on key business processes and or operations in significant change, and customer trust and brand reputation. So, itong tatlong level na to, yung high, medium, and low, is dyan natin mai-input yung mga information kung saan sila nakapaloob. If the information damage is in severe compliance, it will fall under high. Kapag medium naman, substantial material impact lang. And kapag low is minimal impact lang. But if you will recognize all of that levels, yung tatlong yan, is it can lead to loosen or weakening the trust of the clients and the customer. And pwedeng maapektuhan dito yung reputation ng isang company when information risk occurs. Next. So if we have risk levels, we have risk information risk categories. We have three. First is confidentiality, the disclosure of sensitive information to unauthorized individuals or systems. So example nitong confidentiality is yung mga bank book details, mga credit card numbers mo, yung mga government documents, and yung information ng isang tao na isinare mo without the permission of that person. Next is integrity. This is the impact to the accuracy and consistency of data and information. So it involves dito yung authorized modification of an information. Kasi ang isang data or a document is may possibility pa siya na magkaroon ng changes or may ma-delete ng mga information doon and magkaroon ng misstatement. While the availability is the effect on the ability to access capabilities and associated data and information. So, it means naman na yung mga documents should be accessible and available to all authorized users. So, those are the risk categories. Next po. So, here are the causes of information risk. We have four. First is the remoteness of information. Risk that involves information that is provided by others must be relied upon. When information is obtained from others, the likelihood of it being intentionally or unintentionally misstated increases. So, ang main point dito is An information or ang isang data is kapag nirelied mo siya to other person, there is a high possibility na magkaroon ng misstatement or yung marireceive mong information and data is incorrect. So if that happens, it can lead to problem like magkakaroon ng confusion or um, kasama na dito yung sa reputation ng company and pwede ring magkaroon ng penalty. Second is the biases and motives of providers. So this risk involves information provided by someone whose goals are inconsistent with those of the decision maker. The information may be biased in favor of the provider. So dito from the word bias. So it means na hindi balance or hindi fair yung pag-consider mo dun sa mga information and data na nare-receive mo. May pinapaboran ka lang and dinidecline mo or hindi mo kino-consider yung ibang data na meron sa'yo. Third is the voluminous data, risk that involves organization becoming larger, so does the volume of their exchange transactions. This is the likelihood that improperly recorded information is included in the records or buried in the large amount of information. When we say voluminous, it means large numbers, so large number of data. Um, when a company having a large number of data, hindi naman yan hindi naman yan agad-agad maayos mo or mafa-file mo ng maayos and ng concise and systematic way. And having a large number of data is pwedeng mag-cause ng improper record kasi madami kang i-consider na pag-evaluate, pag-monitor ng mga files. So that is one of the information risks then. Lastly is the complex exchange involves exchange transaction diffusion have become increasingly complex, making it more difficult to record properly. Ayan, when the connection din sa voluminous data, when an organization is meron siyang multiple transaction with different companies, is may chance na magkaroon ng problema kasi madami kang files, madami kang documents. Pwedeng mapagpalit mo yon or hindi mo ma-monitor ng maayos, hindi mo ma-evaluate. So, if that happens, magkakaroon ka ng, you will suffer under information risk na dapat nga iniiwasan mo. And having large number of data it is very time consuming and dapat talagang focus ka sa pag-monitor ng mga data mo para hindi ka magkaroon ng damage or loss of information. Next po. So, if we have causes of information, meron din naman tayong iba't ibang ways to reduce information risk. So, we have three main ways. First is user verifies information. The user may go to the business to obtain records and info. This practice is considered impractical and costly. Users share info risk with management by relying on a basis for a lawsuit, but the downside is that users may not be able to collect on losses if the company is unable to repay the loan. And last is an independent audited financial statement. It is provided. This is mostly reliable but surely has to be obtained with a reasonable cost. So, kung mapapansin nyo, dito sa three main ways na to is it is very costly. Mag-i-spend ka talaga ng a lot of money just to make sure that your documents and data are secured and yung mga gaps and losses ng information is maiwasan mo. So in order for your data to be secured, you will spend a lot of money and it is important para hindi magkaroon ng damage or loss sa isang information or sa isang data. Is namo-monitor mo tapos sumusunod ka dun sa mga process, nagkakaroon ka ng evaluation para maiwasan mo yung mga risk of information and hindi ka pa gumastos ng malaki if ever na magkaroon ng information risk. So, next reporter po. So next is the bias of information provider. Miss Joyce.
Um, bias of information provider. Next po. Next slide. There is an assumed conflict of interest between the shareholder and management regarding financial information. Financial statements and other financial information serves as the report card of management of its stewardship, the only report card prepared by the one being graded. Having said this, information may be presented in favor of the provider when his goals are different with some stakeholders. So from the word bias po, ano siya, one-sided siya. One-sided informations na nanggagaling sa provider. In this case, nagkakaroon siya ng conflict between the interest of the shareholder and the information provider, which is the management. Kasi yung management yung provide ng financial informations and reports, which is also called as report card. Yun yung siya yung nagpo-provide ng mga informations na ipapasa sa shareholders para mali. Dito sa nagkakaroon siya ng bias when it comes to reporting kasi in case na nagkakaroon ng conflict yung dalawa nga, ang information ay usually pabor siya dun sa provider, dun sa management. And then, infos are presented dun sa nasabi ko na nga, informations are presented in accordance with what is in favor to the management. Kaya nagkakaroon siya ng parang pwede na rin siya natin i-consider as fraud kasi nagkakaroon ng manipulations or inaayon nila yung informations dun sa management, hindi dun sa kung ano yung gusto or interest ng shareholders. So that is what we call bias of information provider. Yan po. Next, bias and motives of provider. Risk that involves information provided by someone whose goals are inconsistent with those of the decision maker. The information may be biased in favor of the provider. Like what I said po kanina, parang kadugsong na lang din niya ito. Kumbaga, yung mga informations na ipinoprovide, inconsistent siya kasi nakadepende siya dun sa provider, dun sa information provider. Kaya, nagkakaroon siya ng unstable decisions kasi yung decisions na yun nanggagaling siya dun sa information provider. Kaya nagkakaroon siya ng bias nga po kasi to conclude, hindi siyang nakadepende, yung decisions ay nakadepende dun sa information provider which is bias na nga po kasi lagi siyang nakapabor dun sa kagustuhan ng management. Next po.
So next is the volume of data.
Next, please. Okay, upward po. So let's go. When the business grow, possibly thousands, if not millions of transactions are processed daily through the use of sophisticated computer program via manual system. So there is a possibility, therefore, that improper recorded information may be buried in the records, leaving the overall result inaccurate, if not misleading. And trained professionals, therefore, are needed in the area. So to further elaborate this volume of data, let me have an example. So, example, I have a roofing business and I transact daily 20 customers
potential and returning mix. And I record or my auditor record my transaction through computer. Uh, if I or my auditor is not professionally enough see, unlabeled, basta lang sinalang kung saan saan, walang proper place kung saan lang isinuksok doon lang. No? So, therefore, my files or information from my business or transaction will be misleading or unreliable. Why? Because my file contains mixed new and returning customers information. So halo-halo na. Hindi nakahiwala yung dati sa bago. Hindi nakahiwala yung kailangan sa hindi na kinakailangan. Yung ah, yung mga information na dati na dapat na nahiwalay na sa tamang lalagyan, ngayon nakahalo pa sa mga bagong information na galing sa mga potential customers or new customers. So, if returning customers will seek for a copy of transaction, I may not be able to provide them because it is boring. Because halo-halo na. Misleading na yung ano, magulo na, kumbaga. Magulo na. Hindi mo na agad-agad siya mahanap kasi mislabeled or unlabeled yung mga information or transaction from clients because uh, unprofessional or basta lang isinalang yung mga information or transactions. So, I keep an examined file and do not separate it from the new files. So, yun na nga yung sinabi ko because of faulty or improper auditing and record management. So, ano dapat ang gawin natin dito is dapat natin gawin dito is to train or hire professionals and the professionals para gampanan yung tungkulin ng isang auditor. So, next po, next reporter.
Good evening everyone. Pasensya na, medyo maingay dito sa amin.
Next reporter po.
Next slide.
Good evening. Dito na tayo sa complexities in transaction. Next slide po. Complexities in transactions. Changing and a new relationship in business leads to some innovation in accounting and reporting process. Transactions nowadays are getting complicated and becoming more difficult to record, let alone be understood by stakeholders. Example of these are derivatives, quotes, multi-level mortgage, insecurities, reinsurance, different valuation, and other complex transactions. The financial markets, which the board of directors and other decision makers in the company might venture it. Sinasabi dito, yung transaction is mas nagiging komplikado. Ngayon, upang maintindihan ang isang stakeholders yung pagbabago at pag-innovate ng isang business is mas nagiging napapadali when it comes to accounting and reporting. So basically, nai-innovate ang accounting and reporting business or organization. Mas maintindihan ng stakeholders ang record and transaction. Tulad na lamang kapag binago yung source of income. Futures, multi-level mortgage, multi-level mortgage, ito ay isang pagpapahiram ng pera at pagsangla. So, yung board of directors and other decision makers possibly join together or cooperate together kapag binago yung complex transaction in financial markets. That's all. Thank you.
So there's a risk that information provided by the management na hindi laging reliable. First is the potential bias by the management. Second, the remoteness of users from the an organization. And the primary issue entirely focuses to the complexity of transaction and as well as the processing system. So sa processing system, nandun na yung issues ng management na kung saan yung financial statement ay hindi naka-record ng maayos. So nagkakaroon doon ng ng severe consequences. The investors are making the decision based on the financial statement, kung ano sinasabi dun sa financial statement, dun magbabase yung investor sa pagdesisyon nila. And ayon sa ISA or International Standard on Auditing 2000, objective and general principles governing an audit of financial statement. Auditing is an endeavor of assuring the readers of financial statement with confidence in the figure of financial statement. Ano nang Meaning, 'pag ikaw ang auditor, alam mo na dapat kung ano yung gagawin mo, professional, expert ka na because gagawin mo na yung pag-audit ng isang financial statement, ikaw na gagawa. So, auditors are expected in independent expert sa financial preparation and reporting kasi sila na yung may alam dun sa ganung bagay and expected na talaga na ganun nga na expert na sila dun and sila yung credible na gumawa ng financial statement. And after nila gumawa ng financial statement, ipapasa naman nila yung gawa nila, yung presentation, to the shareholders na kung saan sila yung nag-hired sa kanila. And auditors should have or conduct examination para dun sa good banking or sa opinion na gagawin nila sa report or dun sa paggawa nila ng financial statement. So, kapag auditor ka, of course, alam mo na talaga yun and parang magkakaroon ka na ng confident na i-defend yung financial statement mo kung sakali man na may mga may mga problem dun sa sa transaction dahil nga dun sa maling pag-record ng data.
So next topic is about the duties of auditor. Next presenter po.
Naririnig?
Yes po.
Okay. Thank you. So ayun nakita na natin yung mga importance ng auditing as well as ng auditor. So masasabi natin na malaki ang ginagampanan ng isang auditor and mabigat as well as syempre sobrang significant niya sa mga company. So before tayo mag-proceed sa mga duties ng auditor, let me read you this statement. So every company needs to appoint an individual or a firm as its auditor as per section 1391 of the Companies Act 2013. Furthermore, Companies Act 2013 provides an auditor of a company's certain statutory rights and duties in order to help him undertake his commitments honestly. So without the auditor's rights and or yung power ng isang auditor, he cannot perform his duties and responsibilities fairly. Thus, kapag ito ay nangyari, kumbaga, siya ay magiging held na accountable doon sa mga laws na pwedeng matanggap ng company. So, sino nga ba ang auditor? Who is an auditor? An auditor is a professional who is qualified to conduct an audit of the company. Such a person evaluates the validity of the company's financial statements. So, dun nga sinasabi ko kanina, sila yung nag-ensure kung gaano ba katama yung mga financial statements na na kinala namang nakukuha doon sa pinapasa sa kanila na yung mga day-to-day na namo-monitor nung taong naka-assigned naman doon. So, this is undertaken to report if the company adheres to the established set of standards or procedures. So, kung nagwa-one day kayo, kung iniisip nyo na para siyang may kahalintulad siya, which is accountant. So, hindi po sila pareho. Kasi ang accountant, sila yung gumagawa ng financial documents. Sila yung nagbo-bookkeeping ng mga o nagmo-monitor ng mga day-to-day activities ng isang company. Well, ang auditor naman is siya yung nag-evaluate ng accuracy ng mga financial statements. So now, let us proceed na po dun sa duties of an auditor. Okay na? Okay, number 1. Auditor provide an audit report. So the fundamental duty of a company's auditor is to make a report regarding accounts and financial statements examined by him and present the same to the members of the company. So itong number 1 na ito, siya yung pangunahing duty ng isang auditor. Siya yung nagagawa ng report ng mga accounts na kanyang, gaya nga ng sinabi ko kanina, na kanyang in-inspect na or kanyang in-examine. Evaluate nyo na kung yun ba ay accurate, kung ba yun ay tama na for him to present it to the stakeholders ng company. So, ang karagdagan dito, such an opinion of the auditor enhances the credibility of the financial statements. This is because nagpo-provide siya ng reasonable assurance from the auditor that the financial statements na binigay niya is true and fair of the view company's state of affairs. So, number 2, make proper inquiry. It is the duty of every auditor to seek access to books of accounts, vouchers, and other information and explanation from the company. Furthermore, an auditor can also inquire information regarding the following matters from the company at any time. So, hindi na dyan nilagay sa so basahin ko na lang. Whether the loans and advances made by the company on the basis of security have been properly secured. So the number 2 duty of an auditor is to make proper inquiry. It is the duty of every auditor to seek access to the books of accounts, vouchers, and other information explanation from the company. So ito, tama nga naman, for him to evaluate thoroughly yung mga financial statements, kailangan niyang humanap or mag-seek kailangan niya maka-access dun sa mga books of accounts, as well as vouchers and other information or explanation from the company. For him to also give a fair or true financial statements. Kasi kapag hindi niya yung nagawa, loss yun ang company. So kailangan nilang the company itself need to cooperate with their auditor. Number 3. Auditor assists in branch audit. So the accounts of a branch office can be audited by number 1 bullet, a company's auditor. Number 2 bullet, any individual appointed as the branch auditor as per the act. Number 3 bullet, a company's auditor or accountant or any competent person appointed as per the laws of the foreign country in case of a foreign branch. So ang auditor, pwede din siyang mag-assist sa mga branch audit. So wait lang, let me review kung ano yung tinutukoy na branch audit dito. So ang branch audit is an official inspection of an organization, entity, or company branch. Thus, ang branch auditor, kailangan niya mag-prepare ng mga reports na may kinalaman sa mga accounts ng branch na matinukoy ko na in-examine niya. Kailangan niyang siguraduhin na yung mga proper books are maintained and hence give reasons of qualification in the report. So the number four duty of an auditor is the compliance with auditing standards. The central government establishes the auditing standards in consultation with the ICAI and National Financial Reporting Authority or NFRA. So let me tell you kung ano itong ICAI stands for. So itong it stands for Institute of Chartered Accounts of India. So sa India to, dito naman sa Philippines nag-search ako. Ito yung the Philippines has adopted IFRS, which stands for International Financial Reporting Standards. So ito naman yung ginagamit natin, IFRS. The Philippines has adopted IFRS, which stands for International Financial Reporting Standards. As standards, as Philippine Financial Reporting Standards. So ito yung ginagamit ng mga auditor dito na standards dito sa dito sa bansa natin. So ang mga standards na to, tinutulungan nito yung mga auditor or napaka-importante nito kasi it helped them to examine the books of accounts effectively and with great accuracy. And every auditor must comply with established auditing standards. So kailangan nila mag-comply while examining the company's books of accounts. So paki-take note na lang po nung binanggit kong standards dito sa Philippines. IFRS, which stands for International Financial Reporting Standards.
Reporting of frauds. A company's auditor, while performing his duties, might encounter fraudulent situations. In such circumstances, the auditor may believe that an offense equivalent to a fraud has been committed against the company. It is the responsibility of an auditor to report the fraudulent situation caused by the officers or the officers or the company's employees. Nawala tuloy ako ga. It is the responsibility of an auditor to report fraudulent situation caused by the officers and company's employees in the central government within the 60 days of his knowledge. So, when we say frauds, ito yung mga kaganapan sa loob ng kumpanya na kung saan nangyayari yung pandaraya katulad ng pagnanakaw sa pera at sa serbisyo ng kumpanya. And reporting of frauds does not only provide yung pagkakakilanlan ng mga of the persons involved, but also it contributes on the progress of the company. So next is provide assistance in investigation. Investigation refers to checking of specific records of a business systematically and critically. Auditor as the one who conducts audit in the company and the one who evaluates financial statements, it is his or her responsibility to provide assistance in investigation of specific records of a business systematically and critically. And in another way, after the reporting of frauds, yung auditor, the auditor is the one who observed the fraud in the company, and he or she has the knowledge, alam niya kung ano yung proseso ng pagkakaroon ng fraud, and it is her or his duty to provide assistance in investigation to know kung sino yung mga person involved at kung ano yung um, mga kadahilanan nila para magawa yung ano na yon, yung activity na yon. Thus, it is the duty of the auditor to assist the officers undertaking such an investigation. So next na po. Naulit yan, pero the last duty of an auditor is the adhere principles of auditing. One of the basic principles that govern an audit is confidentiality. Thus, the auditor should maintain confidentiality of information acquired while performing his duties as an auditor. Main principle of auditing is the confidentiality. An auditor has no rights of the disclosure of the client information without his prior permission. Furthermore, the auditor must be honest, sincere, impartial, and free from biasness. Thus, he should exercise a high degree of integrity and objectivity while examining the company's books of accounts. These um these seven duties are not only duties of an auditor but also a responsibility that could help on the development and progress of a company. That's all lang po. Thank you.
Maureen?
So, hello, good evening once again. So, before we say goodbye and before we stop this record presentation, we would like to say thank you in advance for all of you for listening to this presentation. Um, we can honestly say that pinoses namin yung cooperation and lahat naging involved. And we would like to say also na thank you kay ma'am kasi by the means of this, kumbaga, mas na-test pa yung pagiging cooperative namin as well as pagiging creative and the opportunity also to because we have given a chance to present this topic to all of you. Yun lang po.
Ayun. So, additional lang sana, madami kaming na-input na new ideas and knowledge sa inyo about sa roles of external auditor. So, special thank you kay Miss Danica. Super thank you po. Na-appreciate namin yung pagtulong mo sa amin when it comes to recording. Thank you, Danica.
Thank you, Danica. And addition din pala kung may questions kayo, open kami. Feel free to tell us kung may mga inquiries kayo or quiz or question concerns. Yun lang.